Promising you guys this video for a while. Let's do a get ready with me about how I healed my thyroid naturally. And hopefully this helps some people out. So a little over a year ago, I'm at the hairdresser and I had noticed that my hair was getting thin. I was thinking it might be hormonal changes. I was heading towards, planning my son's wedding. And so I was really kind of thinking maybe it was a stress or whatever. And I noticed my hair getting so thin to the point that like my scalp didn't feel like it was getting covered. So I'm at the hairdresser one day and she basically gives me the worst news ever. She's like, listen, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but I am going to tell you your hair is getting so thin on top that I think you should go to the doctor and get some blood tests done. So you know what my first thought is? I'm dying. Don't mind me, we're going super pink today, so I'm gonna really load it on and see if this all works out. It may actually not work out, but we'll see. So I get put on medication for my thyroid and I get put on medication for my cholesterol, and I started to go down this path of, okay, what is the issue? And pretty quickly I started to get to the point of realizing that medications are a way of covering up symptoms. They're not really helping you to get better. So just to be clear, I'm not a medical doctor. And although I do have my doctorate, it's in business strategy and finance. So that wasn't going to help me at all. But what I'm really good at is research. And that is probably the biggest takeaway from getting your advanced degree, is that you really learn how to research and you understand that like all perspectives are good perspectives as you kind of develop your answer to the problem. So I end up diving into the works of Anthony Williams, the medical medium, a whole bunch of like holistic healers, and really trying to figure out like what is causing my thyroid to misfire, and started to link that my thyroid misfiring was causing all of these other issues, including the cholesterol issue. So that was my working hypothesis, and I basically started out on working on that. So what I ended up doing is I ended up really, first of all, making some changes to my diet, and second of all, making some changes to really address how the liver really affects inflammation based on the research. And this is what worked for me. It may not work for everybody. So one of the things I researched was there's this virus that's inherent in your body. Now, this was my hypothesis. I don't know if it's true or not true, but this is really where I started to say, okay, if I have this virus called EBV in my body and it's actually attacking my thyroid, then what is feeding EBV? So there were a bunch of foods and a bunch of things that really you can avoid to make sure that you're starving that virus. You can't get rid of the virus. Once you have it, you always have it. And it's just the way it's actually attacking your body. For me, I believe it was attacking my thyroid. So what I end up doing is I end up believing that the way to really stop foods from attacking your diet, your thyroid, was to modify my diet with no eggs, no pork, no red meat, no gluten or dairy. So for probably 2 to 3 weeks, I really stayed 100% committed to eliminating those foods, because at that point I was horrified. Like, I was on medication for the first time in my life. So I'm like, this is a slippery slope. I'm going to go from 2 pills a day to 12 pills a day. And then, listen, it's like, it's all downhill from there. So I start with avoiding those foods. And then I try to figure out what foods do I have to eat more of. And berries, I actually order wild blueberry juice that I actually have a shot of every day. I started to incorporate turmeric drinks into my diet. I started to incorporate, lots of lemons to help my liver really kind of cleanse and detox. And I started to bring in a lot of leafy greens. And so for 3 weeks, I was really, really consistent. I ate very few meats, and I really almost like took the approach that I was going to starve my body of all the things that are really feeding the EBV virus. So I really took that. Then I said, step 2, let's focus on my liver, and let's kind of do this all at once. And let's figure out, how do I get my liver to the point that it's more efficient and more effective? And how do I get to the point that it's I'm giving it extra time? Because your liver is basically, in order for it to really kind of filter out whatever toxins or metals are in your body, you really have to give it the time. So sometimes overnight isn't enough. So I really went into this like prolonged fasting. So in the morning, I would basically have a black cup of coffee with nothing in it. And then I would have black cup of coffee, and then I would have a big glass, I usually have it here on my counter, of lemon juice. And I would basically just sip on the lemon juice. I actually that's how I actually found the silica-based, collagen product that I always tell you guys about. And I would drop that in, and I would basically be drinking that all the way until noontime. And I also incorporated turmeric shot. Then I started taking supplements, and I started to do the Brazil nuts, and so I can get the selenium. I started to put ashwagandha into my diet. And I started to really kind of give my body the things that it needed. I would have lots of acai bowls, and really largely went to a plant-based diet. Now, here's the thing. I don't live well by like diets, but for those 3 weeks, I thought, let me give it this 3 weeks and let me really starve it. So when I put all those things together, and I went back for testing. And I went back for testing. It was really almost 3 months later. Everything was back in line. I was off my medications. I had gone on the medications for probably about a month, and then I tapered off for about 2 weeks after that. So by the time I went to go get the medications done, the test done, I was actually cleared. My cholesterol was back in line. My thyroid levels were back in line. I mean, literally it took me three months to correct everything that was really kind of going awry with my body. So I almost thought of it as taking the time to basically like starve this little virus and really kind of cure this inflammation over that short-term period so that I could get to a point that I could really kind of live more of an 80-20 lifestyle, because I didn't really want to go plant-based, but I did want to make sure that I had an 80-20 lifestyle so that I do avoid those foods. But if we're out to eat, or, you know, we're just having a weekend that it's just easier not to avoid those foods, I do it. But then I clean up again, and I do that kind of prolonged fasting in the morning with the lemon juice, and it has just become kind of a way of life, so that 80% of the time I'm really good, and the other 20% of the time when I'm enjoying, as an Italian culture, like food is part of what you enjoy, relative to eating together and breaking bread together and, you know, having all this food around. That was really important to me. So I never wanted to give that up, but I did have to get to the point that it became more controlled, and I got my liver back in working order, and I got my thyroid levels back in order, so my body could really find its homeostasis where it like refunctioned well. And then I could go forward and say, okay, when I get a little bit looser, I know how to like rein it back in. So that's how I discovered, that's why I could talk about all the hair thinning. I mean, now I have so much hair on the top of my head. I have more hair than I ever have because of all the collagen. Now, a lot of it's still growing out, and some of them are shorter hairs. Like when you take a look at some of these hairs, this is the year long of collagen, like literally handfuls of hair that I've never had before. And it was really just a process of just trying to figure out how to get my body healthier so that my body was doing the things that it was supposed to be doing. So that's my story. I don't know that it works for everyone. That was really me just doing a ton of research and just putting together a trial and error system for what ended up working for me. And that just seems like that was really what got me back to health, feeling really good. I'm not tired anymore. My hair is back. My eyebrows were actually thinning from here down. And I've always had really thick eyebrows. My eyebrows were thinning from there down. My skin was so dry. I mean, my whole body was just basically starting to say, like, I don't know, something's not working here. So it was so wonderful to kind of take control back and even tell the doctor, like, I'm not going to cure the symptoms. I'm actually going to cure the problem. And, you know, that was really the road that I took. So that really worked for me. And I'm hoping that that might work for you, or maybe, you know, your own process of trial and error might be something that really gets you to a better place and gets your body functioning naturally. Everybody's dealing with their own mix of, you know, medical issues and things like that. So like I said, that was my process. I thought I'd share it with you. Maybe there's some little nuggets that help you to get to that place. So there's today's Get Ready With Me. I hope I didn't bore you, and I hope, you know, anyone who has issues with their thyroid was able to get something out of it. So always fun chatting with you guys. I have the best TikTok girlfriends, and I love chatting with you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Have an awesome day. Bye. Final thought. Don't do yourself the disservice of thinking that what your doctor says is the only answer. There are other answers. There are other ways to look at the problems. And honestly, sometimes you have to take your health into your own hands. So that's my final thought of the day. I have lots of examples of how it would have been a big mistake, and I would have done a disservice to just basically lean on a pill or a medication to solve the problem. It's not always the issue. Talk to you soon.